Hello and welcome back to the channel. You know, I've found I can be pretty sensitive to ride quality, but apparently Ford's just sensitive to cost. Because we're taking this junk off after 34,000 miles and replacing it with these Bilstein 5100s. Follow along.
All right, so the first thing we're going to do is get the front end of the truck up off the ground. We're going to support both sides of the frame. Even though obviously we're taking this wheel off, you want the other wheel up off the ground as well, because you don't want to cross load your sway bar or you'll be fighting this end link right here the whole time, and you don't want that. I did take this tire off. I put it under the frame for a little bit of added safety in case the truck were to fall. Always recommend doing that. Then starting disassembly, what we're going to do, we're going to take this brake caliper off. We're going to hang it from the frame using this. Just get that out of the way early, so we're not fighting the weight or anything. We're going to take the disc brake off, set it aside. We're going to pop this cap off of here that's covering your axle nut, and then there's a nut, the axle nut and a washer underneath there. Once that's done, the axle will be able to pull out of the hub. We will take off, there's an ABS wire that's running down here. We're going to take that off and pull it loose so that it's not getting tugged on once we have everything loose, because that is the shortest piece of wire or hose in the assembly. You'll be pulling on that. So we're going to get that out of the way. Then we're going to take off this bracket here that's holding some of the electronic lines and the brake hose. We're going to take that off, and then I think once we get all that done, we're down to the end link nut. And pop the end link off, and then the nut here holding on the spindle to the upper control arm. And once that's done and that's popped out, we should be free. It's just going to be held on with the lower ball joint and the steering arm there, and it should swivel around and get out of the way for us to take the assembly out. So let's get going.
All right, I wanted to add a little detail here. I did undo the upper control arm from the knuckle first before I got the caliper off, because the control arm was in the way of accessing that lower caliper bolt. So now with that undone and the spindle rocked back, I should have plenty of clearance to get to that other caliper bolt. Already undid the 13mm axle nut, and then I'll take that nut off right here, or take that bolt out so that this is free before I take the caliper loose, because the brake line goes right through that. All right, as I mentioned, I got the caliper off and hung up there. Did have to take some of these push pins loose from the bracket so that the brake line could swing out of the way over there. And then I took the rotor off. Had to hit it with a dead blow a couple times just to get it loose. I'll put some anti-seize around the inner diameter of that when I put it back together. And I wanted to show you this. To get this ABS sensor out, there's a little Allen head right here. I did put a little penetrating oil on that to get it to loosen up, because it gets a little rusty with this aluminum next to the steel. But you're gonna have to take loose this bolt. You're gonna have to take that bolt out, move this dust shield out of the way to get that to go through the hole and get this hose free. Okay, now that we've got all that out of the way, we're ready to take the assembly out. So I've already got the bottom nuts loose, but not completely off. I'm going to go up here to the top. And the sharp-eyed among you will notice that I took some videos and pictures, mainly pictures, yesterday when I was doing the passenger side, and today we're doing the driver's side. So you can see right down there the 3 nuts that we have to take off to get the assembly out. So we'll probably come in from right here at the top. The reason I bring up the other side is it was a little more difficult to get to one of the nuts, but overall it's pretty easy. All right, I got the spring compressed and the forward shock taken off. You can see this perch is welded on, and there's an angle down here at the bottom. So we're gonna have to match that up when we put the new assembly into the spring. But I wanted to show you, these are height adjustable. For now, I'm leaving these on the bottom perch. And you got this sleeve that goes on, and then the perch and this perch liner. So this obviously can rotate. So you want to get that orientation with the bottom of the spring lined up with this. because that goes at an angle onto the shock, or onto the lower control arm. When I get to the top hat to put it back on the shaft, now to get the old one off, I actually did use an impact. That's not recommended on a shock, but those are going in the trash. So on the new one, I will use this tool right here, which is 19 millimeter open-sided, and it will allow you to hold the nut while you tighten the shaft, the little tip of the shaft there. So that's how I'm going to assemble it all back onto the spring. So I'll do that, and then we'll have an assembly ready to go back in the truck. So one thing I don't want to overlook while I'm in here is where these brackets are welded onto the frame. It was getting a little rusty on the welds, so you might as well hit it with some undercoating while you're in here. Okay, I just about have it wrapped up here. Got a few more nuts to tighten up. Finish routing these wires and tubes, and hook the sway bar back up, and I'll be done. One thing I wanted to mention was you may need an alignment after this, and if you have a paint pen, might be a good idea to mark your lower control arm bolts where the shock mounts to it, and also your caliper bolts, and check those every time you take the tires off. All right, I just about got this wrapped up. I wanted to point out that to get this upper ball joint connected, you'll need to jack up the A-arm from underneath, and then you'll have to let it back down to do your sway bar end link nut, which is 21 millimeters. And then the center of it, which you'll need to hold, is a T45 Torx bit. Now I'm going to torque the wheels, put the wheels back on, torque them to 150 foot-pounds, and then I'll get in alignment in the next couple days. Final thoughts on the Bilstein 5100s, or B8s as they're calling them now. Now, I previously installed them on the rear, and I'll link that video below, but now that I put them on the front, I'm pretty happy with it as an overall package. This truck was a 2023 FX4, and it was super soft in the front, almost a Cadillac ride quality. And I get it, for off-road that's probably a good thing, but for daily driving it just wasn't there. And after 34,000 miles, bump compliance was not what it used to be. There was a lot of jitter from the front end. So immediately that went away when I put on the Bilsteins. I've driven the truck 4,500 miles now with the new Bilsteins. I've driven it on-road, off-road, I've towed on gravel roads, I've daily driven it, and I went on a 2,500 mile road trip. Now, small bump compliance over like grooves in the concrete or expansion joints in the concrete, you're gonna feel it a little bit more than you did before. It's really hard to tell because the front shocks were so bad previously, but I will say small bump compliance is a little bit more than it previously was, and but the truck rides more like a car than it used to. Now, your large bump compliance is much improved. I really, really appreciate how well they're valved for large bumps. So with all that said, for the money, I think these are hard to beat, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend them to anyone else. Thanks for watching.